Good evening. So, welcome to Ventura County Potters Guild event. I'm going to be having a conversation about handles, but primarily handles like related to mugs, pitchers, those kind of handles. And I'm Wynn Matthews. I'm former president of the guild. I've held another number of other positions on the board and the gallery committee, other things that the guild has done over the years. And I've been potting for over 50 years. So I was asked to have this conversation. So I'm going to start here with this is a mug of mine. It's probably about 8 years old, Chino porcelain, and just to talk about handles. So before I get to this handle, so one thing I saw in doing kind of research and looking at a lot of websites with handle potters with mugs and looking on Etsy and looking on Pinterest and so forth is people tend to settle on a handle that they like. And that's where I am. So this handle here, this is the handle I make now. I've made all kinds of other handles with grooves, with the little like bump up here for your thumb, all kinds of different things where it's attached. And I've settled on this because it feels the most comfortable to me. And so some of the things that I like about it's a pulled handle. It's pulled on the pot. So I attach the clay and pull the handle on the pot. I'll do that later. And I settled on that because it looks like it's like a branch coming out of a tree. It feels organic in that way to me versus handles that are stuck onto pots. And that's not to say I don't like handles that are stuck onto pots, or I don't own some mugs with handles that are stuck onto pots. But this is where I settled for my work. And I'm going to talk about, when I get to pulling handles, I'm going to talk about how do I figure out where the handle goes and how do I figure out how big the handle is, like where does it attach and where does it, on the bottom, where does it attach. And one of the things I do is I pay attention to this negative space. So we'll talk about that in more detail, even as we look at some photos that I have of what I consider bad handles, questionable handles, and good handles. That'll be a reference point for in a number of cases. So another thing with mugs, there's a center of gravity here, and it's not where my hand is. The center of gravity is like over here somewhere. And the mug should feel comfortable in your hand. The handle should feel comfortable in your hand and give you a way to hold your hand that gives you the leverage to hold the mug with the way your body's constructed. I've seen handles on things where you have to do this to pick it up, which is not how your body's made. So anyway, that's important to me. It's like the same kind of form as function. Function is form that we talk about in terms of functional pots. Same is true of the body. So that's all I got for that right now. I'm going to online, and I found some handles. I went to individual websites. I went to Etsy. I went to Pinterest and took photos of mugs with handles. So I've got 3 groups here of bad handles, questionable handles, and good handles. Now these are my opinion, obviously. I'm not the oracle, and you may disagree with me on some points, no problem, but this is like, how do I see handles on mugs? So this first one here is, the handle is just too big for the mug. The hand's too far away, like holding that handle and then holding the mug is too far away from the mug. I mean, does it work? Yeah, but if you think of your hand holding something, and it increases the weight, increases the leverage, but it increases the weight, the amount of work that your body has to do to hold that cup up when it's that far away from the weight of the liquid in the mug. So too big, and the angle of the pot you can see goes upward to the left, and the energetic handle of the pot goes downward to the left. So in my opinion, in general, that doesn't work, that they should be more in alignment. The good things here are the nub on the top is in the right place up at the top to give you leverage. And the handle looks like it tapers top to bottom. Can't tell in the photo whether it's a round handle or a almost round handle. But the handle itself looks okay, and the tapering looks good, and the little nub looks good. Okay, next. This is a pot that's online for sale. And what can you say? That's just a horrible handle. That's like someone who's just learning to pull handles, and either no one's ever really shown them how to do it, or they're doing it and they're really in the good enough disease. So it's one of my new favorite phrases for myself and everyone that I work with. Like we all have some degree of the good enough disease, instead of really dealing with what is it that's having me say, it's good enough, instead of fixing what that is or learning what that gap is so that that no longer occurs, so that there's happiness and satisfaction. All right, next. This is a bottom-up handle, which is not the most common. And on this one, the size of the handle looks good. The weight of the handle, it looks a little bit heavy in the photo. This to me is kind of maybe borderline. I'd want to hold it, but it looks heavy. And I have two other issues though that are more maybe more important than those. One, so the nub that's on there is in the wrong place. It should be up at the top of the curve of the handle and not down there. If you think of holding, imagine putting your hand in there and putting your thumb on there. Your hand is below, how do I say this? What am I seeing? Your hand, if you imagine your hand out holding the mug, your hand, in order to hold the mug and balance the weight of the liquid that's in that mug, you have to turn your hand up. You got to rotate your wrist up to be balanced at level. And that's just not a comfortable way to be holding something. Second is where that nub is. If you look at the negative space of the handle and you look at the bottom, the inside of the handle across from that little nub, it's slightly flattened. So when they put that on and pushed it, they flattened that part of the handle and didn't know, didn't care. So, some didn't something, didn't repair it, whatever. But that's also a bug. That's another good enough. Next. So this cute little mug has an interesting handle. It looks like it's a slab that was cut and put on. So I don't dislike the shape or the weight of the handle on this, what looks like a little mug, but I think, but that hole to me, the hole in the handle feels too little. I'm not holding the mug, so I don't know for sure, but looking at the photo, that looks too small for me to comfortably get one finger in. This is obviously a one finger handle. And so one finger in, the long finger underneath the handle for leverage, and the thumb up top, it just looks like it's too small. And then I have a problem with the square edges. The handle would be more comfortable if those were rounded, or at least more like beveled. Next. So this handle's too big. It's not hugely too big like that first picture, but it's too big, and it's too heavy. The thickness of the handle, it's too heavy. And it's hard to tell if this is partly the angle. It looks like it's heavier at the bottom than the top, which may be the angle of the photo. But this is
It's probably an extruded handle, be my guess. Anyway, um, the other thing I have shape-wise is I typically like handles that, like this has a good curve at the top, pretty good. There's a little flat spot in there you can see. Again, looking at the negative space. And I typically like handles that after you go around the curve, they don't go straight into the pot. The curve continues. It may be a very subtle, quiet curve the rest of the way down, but if the whole handle defines a curve instead of a curve in a straight spot, um, they look different. They feel different. Okay, next. So this one is, there's some other things I want to see here. I don't have an issue with the size of the handle or the shape of the handle. Looks good. I prefer handles that go up a little bit, like give you a little more leverage, but this is okay. I have two issues with this. One is um, when this looks extruded. So if it's extruded or it's using one of the handle cutters, where you pull the cutter through the clay to get different handle shapes, and then it's just stuck on top and bottom. Excuse me. The handle's not as strong as a handle that's pulled on the pot, that where the clay is thicker around the top, or if after that pot was put on, coil was put around it that gave it a little more um, diameter up against the pot, the handle's stronger than this. So I've owned pots like this. I have friends that make pots that they just stick handles on aesthetically and structurally. They're beautiful, but they're more fragile. And the other thing I want to say, this is not true of this pot, but um, I couldn't find a photo that I wanted anywhere. But sometimes I've seen handles that are obviously made out of slab, cut into ribbons, the width the person wants. They're not tapered, they're the same top to bottom, and they're put on the pot, top, you know, let's say they're formed nicely, but the edges are still square, they were not rounded off. And they're just too thin. They're like 3/16 of an inch or something. So like a thin handle on a good size, on a normal size mug. Again, it's a matter of function, fragility, um, etc. So this, I like the handle, the weight of the handle and everything looks fine. My issue with it is the angle at which the handle comes off the pot. It's similar to the one that was in the prior group, the bad handle group, where the nub was too far down. The angle of this handle coming at that angle off the pot and down to the bottom in order to hold it. Again, you're applying a lot of pressure, you're doing a lot of work with your wrist to hold the mug up. So with a handle that is this shape, it would help if there was one of those nubs up. Um, I don't know. I don't know how big this is, but just say a half an inch max down um, from where the handle meets the pot. So your thumb is up there, and even the thumb up there gives you much more leverage instead of the shape of the handle forcing your hand down. Next. So these look to me like extruded handles, either from an extruder or use the tool and cut through the clay, and they're just too big on the pots. I can't see how they're attached, but they again, too big. Now this one's interesting. I like this. Like the mug isn't level. It's slightly like the handle's on the low point of this form, and it's kind of chunky, but it's round and um, unctuous, and I don't know how it feels in my hand. I can't tell. obviously, because I'm looking at a photo. But I like this aesthetically. So, like if I saw this in a store, I'd go and pick this mug up. This one, the handle's too big. I'm sorry, too heavy. Um, Extruded, rolled, coiled, whatever. It's too heavy for the pot. Um, Now, if it were that weight at the top and it tapered down toward the bottom, to me it would feel much, much better. And I wonder whether the handle, if I was holding the mug, it's kind of borderline to me in terms of the size, whether it might be nice if it was just a little bit bigger. And it also looks like it's flattened a little bit at the top. Now this one is an example of something you got to be careful with, making pots with handles at the top. So even from top down, this is a slightly like above the rim photo. This handle goes above the rim. So when you're putting handles on like that, if you're turning them over uh, for them to stiffen a little bit before you do a final adjustment, you got to be sure that that handle's hanging off the side of the table where you're placing the mug along the edge of your table with the handles off the edge, and not just turning it over on a flat surface, which will flatten that top. Next, so I like this handle, and again, excuse me, I wonder about the angle that it comes off the pot. I like the shape of it. I like the weight of it. You can see like this is very similar to that handle in the first like bad handle series that was just stuck on the pot like an extruded handle. This is something similar, but there's been a small coil of clay put around the joint that makes a much better join between the pot and the handle. But this, my feeling is I would like this better if they were side by side. If this handle were where it attaches the pot, that if it came a little bit straighter off the pot instead of at that downward angle. Anyway, I like the mug. Next, this one, um, this is again, looks like an extruded handle. And looking at the negative space, you can see the curve is not very graceful. Like it pushes out way at the bottom. It should be higher at the top. So this would be an example of a mug. You make the mug, you put the handle on, you turn it upside down if the handle needs to stiffen. And when you turn it back over after that, at the point that's sticking out at the bottom, you actually push the handle up, push it in a little bit, and push the top up a little bit to make the curve more uh, graceful in relation to the piece and just in relation to arches, in relation to curves. Of photos of what to me are good handles. Like this too is a handmade handle. Whether it's a coil or it's extruded, I can't tell. Looks like it might be a coil. It's even, like top to bottom. It's not tapered, which you've heard me over and over again is actually my preference. But I like how this comes up off of the pot and down and around, and even it's a little square at the bottom. Um, you know, being anyway, I like it right size for the pot. If you look at the negative space, like that curve could have been cleaned up during the final adjustments on this handle so that it was more of a curve. I mean, it's a curve. It's more kind of an ear. Okay, next. So this, I like this handle. Um, I wish it tapered a little bit, my personal thing. But I like how it arcs and it comes around. There's a curve all the way down. That's a nice, smooth, even shape. The right size for the pot. And the nub up there is in a good spot. I like the mug too, I like the glazing. This is a guy I saw a blog post of who was looking for uh, a new mug form to work on for a series. He actually did 12 different mugs, so this is 4 of them. But the handles on these I like. They're like, excuse me, they're all similar. So he's got a handle style that he likes, like I have a handle style after decades that I like best. Um, but how they fit the pots, the shapes of the handles, they're tapered, they're pulled. I don't know whether they're pulled off the pot or they're pulled and attached, but they um, merge into the pot in a good way. And yeah, I'd like to see these pots. I'd like to hold them, pick them up, hold them, see what the balance feels like. All right, now a 1-finger handle. We'll get to a different kind of, pots that people are pushing around and deforming a little bit. And obviously this is a coil or it's extruded, but the shape of it and the way that it's put on totally fits the pot and looks like it would be completely comfortable. Like to put 1 finger in there, 1 finger under, the thumb on the top, looks like it would hold and fit my hand really well and would hold up the mug really well. Here's another one, similar, someone has come up with their unique handle shape. And my only question on this, without being able to hold the pot, is whether that angle off the pot, that downward angle off the pot, works. Aesthetically, this works great, but the angle is kind of a triangle. I would probably wind up trying to do this as this would be a 1-finger handle. 2 fingers in there would be a weird angle. So it'd be a 1-finger handle with a thumb on top and the long finger underneath. It might work fine, but nice. Another little 1-finger handle, and awesome. So I like the curve on that better than the triangle on this, but the triangle there fits the pot really well. But this is another pot. If I saw this in a shop someplace, I'd go pick it up for sure. And this is another bottom handle. So in that first group, there was a bottom handle with a little nub that was way out on the, what would that be, 45-degree left, up toward the left in that spot instead of up at the top of the handle. So I find bottom handles interesting. You'll see one that I do later. And the 2 issues I have with this, I like the pot, like the size of the handle. I think the bottom handle is actually a good choice on a lot of mugs that have this kind of shape, that have a wide bottom like that. Again, look at the negative space and follow it around where the handle comes off the pot. It'd be stronger if that curve was consistent from the handle through, the higher point. It's got a flat spot in there. And the other thing is this little nub in here without holding the pot. This one looks like it's too high. Like it would be uncomfortable to put my thumb way up on there. But I don't know. I'm just making that up from looking at it. So, okay. This one also I like. Beautiful curve on the pot. The junction to the pot, good. I like it when handles look and feel like they're tree branches. And tree branches aren't just stuck on. They are emerging from the tree, or emerging from the pot, emerging from the vessel, and that's different than just glued on, stuck on. Okay, next. I like that. Like the pot, like the handle, simple, beautiful curve on the handle. It's flat enough up there on the top, but this being as big a handle as it is, it might be easier to use to hold the pot if it had a little nub up on the top of the handle. I like this handle too. So this is kind of related to that first, very, very first pot with that was white with the little flowers or strawberries or something on it. So here's a handle that's in proportion to the pot as opposed to that one. And good shape. You can, if you look at the joins, if it was an extruded handle and put on a coil or something was put around there to increase where the clay merges into the pot, where the handle merges into the pot.
Okay, so I do a lot of teaching. I have for decades. And when people are relative beginners, they want to know how to make nice handles. And frequently they want to know how to pull handles, which is not an easy place to start. So I show them how to make a simple slab handle that you can put on a pot that looks pretty good. I just kind of make a little, I don't know what you call that, a wedge kind of. And then I'm going to throw the slab to make it longer. I don't have a rolling pin with me, so at this point I might roll it some. I could probably use this. But I'm intentionally making it a wedge so that it's thicker on one end than the other end. Okay. Needle. So I'm going to cut this so that it's wedge shape. And then adjust it as need be. And look at the thickness. So it's still too thick, it's too thin. And I'm going to roll this out more, but I'm not going to start at the end. I'm going to start down a little bit. And this thicker part is going to be the part that attaches to the pot. Okay, that's looking better. Thickness-wise, I don't know if you can see what that is. It's maybe 1/4 of an inch at the thickest spot, and it tapers. So that's another bias or preference of mine. I like handles that taper. So if you look at this, it tapers top to bottom, and it tapers this way, top to bottom both ways. Okay, that's pretty good. So this end I'm going to thicken up in a moment. First thing I want to do though is get rid of these edges. Take a damp sponge, and I'm basically running my fingers, like a thumb and a finger, down the handle. It's also smoothing off any texture from the slab. I want these edges rounded. I don't like round, like square edges. To me, just don't feel good in the hand. So I'm thickening the end up here. So now it looks like that. It's got like a nail head on the end, like an old nail head. And then I'm just gonna grab a pot to put this on. All right, now let's talk about when is the clay ready. So I like to put handles on when I can. This is fairly stiff, but it's still pliable enough. I can move the clay with my thumb, so it's still malleable. If it's a little softer than that, I don't even score the pots. But at this point, I'm going to and then drop water on top of this. I don't use slip. I just put water on it, let it set a moment. To me, the point of doing this is to get water deeper into the clay, and the scratches facilitate that. And if I put slip on there, the same thing is happening over time. Like as the slips sit there, water's going to soak into the clay. But this has always worked for me. So I'm going to go straight onto the pot. I'm going to wiggle it sideways until it stops wiggling, which to me is the sign that it's beginning to, the two pieces are beginning to meld. And then how do I do this so you can see? Certainly can't see under. Okay, now when I attach a handle, whether it's this way or it's pulled, I want it at an angle like this. I don't want the pot horizontal, slightly up, so that when I move the handle around, it's still slightly up or level. It's not headed downward. Okay, now I'm looking at the negative space between the pot and the handle, and I'm looking for a balance in size between the size and shape of the mug and the size of the negative space, not the shape of it necessarily, but the volume of it, to determine the right size for the handle. And then I guess got to make a couple scores down here. Okay, back here, same thing. I'm going to push and wiggle on the score until it's really tight. All right, now this needs to sit upside down for about 15 minutes. We'll see, we're outside, so it might be quicker. But I want there to be a skin to form on the handle, so that when I turn it back over, it's going to maintain its shape, and I can adjust the shape of the handle at that point. I'm going to leave that there while I show you a couple videos. Okay, well, so this is the pot that I put that slab handle on, and it's been about 15 minutes. It's still very slightly tacky, but it's stiff enough I can adjust the shape. So I'm looking at the negative space here in relation to the pot, and it's stiff enough I can adjust the shape of the pot, pushing it down a little there, not the pot, I'm sorry, the handle, pulling it out at the bottom a little bit so that it has the curve that I want, and from both sides because they might be different a little bit. So you may not be able to see that from there, the difference, but it's subtle, but matters to me. So, and at this point too, I can leave the pot right side up, and it's going to dry just like that. It's stiff enough that it's going to not going to sag from gravity. Okay, so now we're going to talk about pulling handles. And if you don't make pulled handles, you want to learn to make pulled handles, here's a good place to start. So I've just got a carat of clay here. It's flattened a little bit. It's not round anymore, that's a little bit flattened. A little bit wedge shaped. I'm just going to wet the clay. The trick to this is keeping the same pressure against the clay all the way while you're pulling down, and not too much pressure. So this is enough clay here to make a number of handles. So if you're practicing and you're learning, this is a good place to start. Let's take a little bit of clay. Okay. Now, the trick is it's all happening like this. And the web of my thumb and finger here, there's a web in there, is what's making the shape initially. So that's round. These fingers are basically like straight off the side, even though they're crossed a little bit. It's the three sides of 1, 2, and the web that are doing the work and applying the pressure. I've turned it around. To make it symmetrical. You want to pull all the way off the bottom. And you want this to taper this way, top to bottom, and taper this way, top to bottom. So I'm actually hitting on all four sides. If I go with the web of my hand on the wide side, I'm making it thinner, or narrower, not thinner, narrower this way. And when the web is on the edges, I'm working on lengthening it. Okay, so that's it. Now, if you're practicing when you're first learning, you're going to mess them up a bunch, like everything when we're first learning them. Just pinch it off. Like if I was not going to use this for something other than showing someone, or I was going to use it, say I was going to put the handle on a pot, or I was going to put it on a casserole or whatever. Just pinch them off, lay them down till later. Then you come back and do another one. So again, the trick is here, I apply a little bit of pressure and I maintain that same pressure all the way down, so my hand is closing as it goes down the clay. It's more obvious if you're working on the edges to get the handle narrower, but even this way, it's still, there's a closing of the hand as it goes down to maintain the same pressure on the clay and stretch it. So it's a combination of the pressure that I start with here and the friction against my hands that makes the clay get longer. Now if you like grooves in your handles, do it at the end. Gonna pinch that one off. So if I were going to attach this to something, if I were going to attach this to a mug, instead of pulling it off the mug, I'd set it down and cut this off thick. Okay, I'm going to talk and demonstrate about pulling handles off the pot. And first I want to check the pots. So they were thrown 2 days ago in preparation for this, and they're a little bit on the dry side. And so my solution to that is, use this, actually just glaze the pot with water. Water in it, pour it out, dunk it or pour it. And by the time that is soaked in, it'll be ready to put a handle on. I find this easier than spraying. Okay, outside. So this one's now, after that, it's very slightly flexible. You can squeeze it, change the shape a little bit, so it's gotten that much softer from being like hard leather hard. Okay, so pulling off the pot, pulling handles off the pot. I make little wedges. This clay's a little bit on the stiffer side. Good. So I do these in multiples. When I'm making mugs, I do them in multiples of 6. I may make more than 6, but I handle them in groups of 6. So I would make 6 of these little wedges. I'm comparing that to the pot. It's too big. So that's more like it. So when you're learning to do this, I'm going to use this mug as a demo. And I'll just do it with 2, but you can do it with 4 or as many as you want. If you just take the handles off and put another handle on where you pulled the handle off. Okay, approximately the same size. I'm going to just put this under plastic. So this is soft enough. I don't need to score this. I can easily move the surface of the clay. The clay is slightly flexible. And I say that this is a stoneware clay. It's called, oh boy, See Something. It's a clay I just started playing with a little while ago. Seaside from Aardvark. So I'm going to wet the end of this, put it on the pot. Again, do the twirly thing, slidey thing until it's stuck. Push the top and bottom in, push the edges in, push the corners in, and then go around and really smooth it in. And then the first thing I'm going to do is just wet the pot around the handle and wet the handle. If I've got 6 pots here, I put this on and I'm going to set that down. I'm going to pick up the second pot and do the exact same thing. So all of them are going to be sitting with that water soaking into the pot around the handle and moistening the surface of the handle. When clay sits out, it gets a little skin on it, so that moistens everything. So I can then go through the group and come back around and pull the handle. So I'm going to start just evening all this out. I'm using my fingers and my thumb like this. I'm using my thumb and my finger like that. Using the hand position I showed when I demonstrated the pulling handles. So now all of those are going to come in, all of that's going to come into play, all those different hand positions, because I've got a mug. I've got this object here that I can't put my hands through it, past it. So I want to be pulling the clay from the pot. So mostly I'm doing that with my thumb in terms of like digging a little more clay off the pot. But now I want to make it longer. And notice again the angle I'm holding the pot. It's not horizontal. Now, if I've done this right and have the right thicknesses and the right tapering, gravity is going to help to shape the handle. I'm just going to let gravity do its job. And as I pull this around, I see I actually want it to be a little bit thinner down at the bottom. And this is actually not a good handle. So I pinched it just like a beginner would. After 50 years, you could just still make all the mistakes you made 50 years ago. But since this was a practice mug, so I'm learning to make handles. You mess that one up. I got another one here. You just keep using the mug. You can put this on it. You can go around it. When I was learning to do this, I'd make 8 to 12 handles using a mug, using a cylinder. Dry my hand a bit. Okay, so I'm going to start. I don't know that I'll get through all these mugs, but they're different shapes. I'm going to start with this one, and this is actually a bottom-up handle pot. So the handle's going to go on here. Okay. Right now I'm paying attention to, is this actually coming straight off the pot? Occasionally I don't pay attention to that and it winds up coming off the pot at a little bit of an angle. And I try to push it back over. Let's see, how do I... So you could do this straight. It's still too long. So I'm twisting this a little bit off to the right, which actually makes it a right-handed mug. If you twist it the other way. It's like the way your hand goes on that it winds up being a right-handed mug. And then that handle is right at or just a tiny bit past the rim at this point. So to turn it upside down, I've got to set it so that the handle is off a table, otherwise it'll flatten the top of that handle out. Okay, so that's not a typical handle. So I'm going to do a typical handle on here, similar to this, but slightly different size and shape because the pot is shorter, fatter. And this too, after it's water glazing, is it the right consistency? I don't need to score it. Oh, I know what I started to say before. This is
Seaside?
Seaside. Thank you, director. Seaside. So I know with this clay that I can do this. I know with like other clays that I use, I can do it. I have to be careful if I'm using like Babu porcelain. It's got to be a little wetter or I need to score it. Nara porcelain works fine. The Miller porcelain from Laguna works fine without scoring. So, know your clay. This is close to that rim. And I don't want that to be completely filled up with clay right up to the rim. Okay, pretty good. I don't know that I need to play with that one, but I always turn them upside down to give myself an opportunity to make any final last adjustments.
All right, so I've got a handle here with a small crack where the handle meets the pot. I'm going to show you how I fix these. And the fix works 90% of the time. So I'm on my phone, the camera at 5x, so it's going to be a little wiggly. I may have to move it out of the frame and then come back in and show you something. I'm not sure. But here we go. So there's this crack. I'm going to go in the crack and I'm going to make holes. So this is pretty dry, but it also works if it's like stiff, leather hard. And my intent is to follow the actual angle of the crack as it goes down into the pot. All right, then I'm going to take the needle and add water. Water in the holes. It goes down the crack some. All right, I'm going to let that soak in for a moment. Then I'm coming back to do it again. This is a little drier, as I said, so I'm going to, a second round, putting water in the holes. Some people have a preference of vinegar instead of water. I've tried both. I haven't noticed a difference. Okay. Now I'm going to move a layer back. I'm going to make another layer of holes, like another row of holes. On both sides of that line. Okay. I'm going to wet that. Let that soak in for a moment. Then I'm going to use the end. I've got a needle here in my hand. I'm going to use this middle end of the needle. You could use a piece of wood or something, but something about this size. And I'm going to start compressing this into the crack again. Now I'm using the edge to push down into the crack. I'm going to put all this clay back in there. Smooth it out. burnishing it. Okay, and that's it. Now, a couple hours from now, I'll know whether that's sealed back up and it's fine, or if I get now a smaller crack in some place, I'll do the same thing again if a smaller crack shows up. But most of the time, that's it. And like I said, about 90% of the time, they come out of the bisque kiln without a crack and come out of the glaze kiln without a crack. When this completely dries, I'll clean up around the edges a little bit where I've left it a little bit messy from the compacting and the burnishing. There you go.
So that's the basics. That's what I got for pulling handles. So we're going to end. We're done. I'm done. And any questions that you have, like problems you have with handles. I've made handles in lots of different ways over the years, as I said, and many different clays. Some work better than others. So if you got any questions, comments, it's your turn.